I go all around the country and do these TV things and stuff like that. And I would be, I mean, I'm pretty close to it. My mother will tell you this. I would be a flat-out idiot. Okay. An idiot, maybe not flat out. But I would be a complete fool if I didn't know you people. Honestly, I would be a complete, because if I took all my information from New York City and Washington and even Madison, I wouldn't know a thing about America. I wouldn't know a thing about what really matters in this country. And I wouldn't know what the real issues are. You know one of the most fascinating things about covering politics is right now? We got this fight over fast track. Everybody here knows what fast track is, right? I assume you do. Fast track it's called Trade Promotion Authority. And it's this deal where we elect people to Congress. And I understand that it's, you know, admittedly, if you can't get a job at the Quick Trip, Congress is an option. But no, I mean, you know, we elect people to Congress, and they honestly, they don't work as hard as a lot of you. I know it's hard to imagine, you know, and they do shower before work, not after, generally. We elect people to Congress. They're actually going to vote sometime in the next week or so on whether or not to do their job. Because fast track says that if you're in the Congress and you're supposed to check and balance the executive branch, you're supposed to do oversight, you're supposed to do amendments, you're supposed to do all that hard, you know, the work, Congress work, right? They're going to vote on fast track. If they vote yes on fast track, then they say, we're not doing anything. We're not going to watch out for workers. We're not going to watch out for the environment. We're not going to watch out for human rights in other countries. We're going to cede the whole thing. We're going to give it all up, and then you can come back to us with a great big new trade deal. A great big new trade deal that will have us in trade relations now with those high-wage countries like Vietnam and Bangladesh, right? I mean, literally, I don't think Bangladesh is it, but you know, it's the Pacific Rim countries, and they want Congress to just cede its authority and to not to give them any trouble. Now, the interesting thing about fast track, and this is why you need to know about it, fast track is the key step for getting a big new trade deal. This new trade deal that they're talking about is referred to as NAFTA on steroids. North American Free Trade Agreement on steroids. What this trade deal would do would be to blow out the barriers so that a company located here could move to, you know, Vietnam and ship its stuff back without any restrictions whatsoever, go for the lowest wages possible, do that race to the bottom one more step. That's exactly the kind of thing that Congress ought to be paying attention to every minute it's there, morning, noon, and night. And they ought to make sure, trade's not bad. It's not bad for us to trade with other countries. But you see, we're the United States. If we do a trade deal, we're not supposed to do a trade deal for multinational corporations. We're supposed to do a trade deal for American workers. The reason they want to take Congress out of that deal, the reason they want to give up that authority is because if Congress is there, somebody might say, well, what about the workers? So they want it to be all done in back rooms by corporate folks. This is a big deal. It's going to be in the front and center over the next couple weeks. And you'll appreciate this fact. Now, I hate to tell you, I wish I could tell you different. The president's wrong on this. President Obama is wrong on this deal. Just like President Clinton was wrong on NAFTA and China free trade. It's just as simple as that. And I wish I could come to you and be some kind of partisan and make you happy that everything's great. I actually think Obama's done a lot of good stuff. And I would compliment him tremendously on many, many good initiatives. This one he's wrong. But it's okay. The founders were really smart. They established checks and balances. And, you know, we know now that the Republicans got control of Congress, they're not going to give Obama this, right? Because Obama wants it, so the Republicans will say no, except the big corporations in Wall Street want this. That's who wants this deal. And so, do you know what Congress talked about doing? The Republican leaders in Congress, Mitch McConnell and John Boehner, say, you know, I know we fought Obama every step of the way, the whole way through here, but now we just realize what a great guy he is, and we're going to give him that fast-track authority. And you know who is leading the fight for fast-track authority? Literally, the point man in the United States House of Representatives. Paul Ryan, your congressman. Now this is a big deal. And this is why I accepted Ted's invitation. Because I want to say to you, and I've said it in my columns, I've said it on television, and I mean it bottom of my heart. I'm born and raised Wisconsin. I'm 7th generation Wisconsin. Paul's family is old school Wisconsin as well. Paul's dad went to law school with my dad. We have known that family in one way or another. Some folks may I have no hatred of Paul Ryan. It's not what this is about. But I want to say one thing and say it bluntly. Paul Ryan is the congressman from Janesville, Wisconsin. And Paul Ryan, when he got to Congress, voted for the China free trade deal. And he has voted for trade deal after trade deal after trade deal. And those trade deals have undermined the United States automobile sector. They have undermined U.S. auto companies. And the fact of the matter is, I won't put full blame on trade. I know there's a lot of other factors. But the fact of the matter is, for a congressman from Janesville, Wisconsin, to vote for free trade, to lead the fight for these corporate trade deals, and say that he cares about the workers who were laid off and left out of jobs when that auto plant closed here in this town, that is a lie. You are not defending workers when you back these free trade deals. Hometown, and I don't even have to be afraid to say it because Paul Ryan's hometown doesn't vote for Paul Ryan. One of my favorite stories in 2012 when Paul Ryan ran for Vice President of the United States of America was to report that Mr. Ryan, who again, I have no disdain for him as a person. He's a nice enough guy and everybody loves his wife. But the fact of the matter is, Paul Ryan's neighborhood, his precinct, voted against him for Congress. Paul Ryan's city, Sam, the city of Janesville, voted against Paul Ryan for Congress. Paul Ryan's county, Rock County, voted against Paul Ryan. And, well, it didn't all work out. You know, he did get back to Congress. The state of Wisconsin voted against Paul Ryan for Vice President of the United States of America. And I don't think that had anything to do with personalities. I think that had everything to do with the fact that Paul Ryan is wrong about trade, and he's wrong about Social Security, and he's wrong about Medicare, and he's wrong about Medicaid. Paul Ryan is wrong. he's not backing Scott Walker for president. No, I'm not kidding. This is one of my favorite things. So they interviewed Paul Ryan, right? And Paul Ryan, he's literally on a TV show. And of course, you know, if you want to be able to say whatever you want and not be held accountable, go on TV. So he's sitting on his interview show, and they're saying, well, if Mitt Romney ran for president, would you have backed him? I said, absolutely. I mean, Mitt's a great guy. I really like him, and I would have backed him, right? Then they said, well, so now Mitt has dropped out of the race, so you're going to back your homeboy, Scott Walker. And he says, oh, no, I can't endorse. Okay. He says, because I'm chair of this committee that's raising all this money to help whoever the nominee is. And they did not follow up. They didn't say, well, you were going to endorse Mitt Romney. How come you can't endorse Scott Walker? And I thought, these national people don't actually get this, right? They don't realize that I read Scott Walker's book, Unintimidated. By the truth. That's the subtitle. It couldn't fit. So I read his book, and he mentioned how great a guy Paul Ryan is and stuff like that. He talked about Paul Ryan, and he's incredibly good looking, great hair, you know, P90X, the whole bit. And then I read Paul Ryan's book. And I read it cover to cover. I looked through the index. No mention of Scott Walker. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is like that horrible thing on the schoolyard where, you know, you're like, yeah, I'm really good friends with that guy. You know, yeah, we're best buddies, right? And then Andy Jorgensen comes over and he doesn't even know who you are. And you know, the fact of the matter is, I can really disagree with Paul Ryan on a lot of things, but I do think he's right not to endorse Scott Walker. And, you know, this has been a rough couple weeks for our governor. Really, it's been a little bit tough because our governor, you know, this is kind of embarrassing. See, because he did win some elections here, and he's kind of sort of our guy. But he hasn't been going incredibly perfectly in this presidential race. Seriously, I was reading, I think it was CNN the other day. They had counted, he's now on his 6th stand on immigration. And there's like issue after issue. They're noting, well, you said this, and now you say this. You said that, and now you say this. And it seems like maybe you sort of tell people what they want to hear at certain times and then say something else at another time. Like, maybe you're not, I don't know, what's the word? Honest? And the best one, which, again, I love everyone in the room. Every elected official here, which is everyone. I love you all. I love all my children. But, so not to pick on Andy, but whose son, by the way, has completely grown up. And is good looking. The adoption's complete. But anyways, Andy just did the coolest thing ever. What up? And he kind of, you know, I think it's fair to say, did it to Walker as well as the Republicans in the legislature. Because, you know, I don't know if you know about all this stuff that's been going on over in Indiana, right? Where Indiana, like, passed this law that said, you know, not that we want to discriminate, but if you want to discriminate against people, you can. And, you know, the Constitution says equal protection, but, you know, that's 14th Amendment. It's way down in the Constitution. It's not the Second Amendment. And so they said you can discriminate against lesbians and gays and bisexuals and transgendered people. And I'm thinking, boy, if anybody needed discrimination, you know, I mean, it's like, because it's so easy to be a transgender person in Indiana. So they passed this law, and it's kind of embarrassing to them because, like, everybody says that's stupid and bad and really kind of mean, you know, and like they found these people who say, yeah, a couple of gay people are getting married, we're not going to serve them pizza. It's okay, I didn't want your pizza. But, you know, it's like, it's just this weird, awful stuff. And it's what they always do. It's the same kind of thing where they try to divide public sector workers versus private sector. They used to try and divide down south, poorest white person from the poorest black person. And they keep trying to divide us because if we ever actually stop worrying about how somebody's different from us, and we start to realize that we're all working people, and most of us are struggling to get by, and most of us could actually use a government that was on our side, and if we all started voting that way, we would run the whole country, and we wouldn't have to talk about 99% and 1%, because the 99% would be in charge, and the 1% would be working for us. That's what it's all about. They keep trying to divide us, and so they did this over in Indiana, and it's kind of embarrassing. So Andy says, well, you guys kind of proposed a bill like this over here, didn't you? And Andy said, hey, everybody's so excited about what Indiana did, let's move our bill forward. He said, I think he's not a sponsor, he's not a supporter of it, but he says, hey, come on guys, let's do it. You're so proud of your stand here. And so Andy gets the state legislature to vote on it. And he puts it forward, and all of his Republican colleagues, they love him for this. I mean, it's just a love fest there, you know. Yeah, you can feel the love. There are people getting up on the floor saying, how dare you make us vote on our bill? What kind of sick, awful person are you? What kind of twisted mind would make us support the legislation that we have sponsored? So he got them all to vote for it, and if you can believe this, because the Republicans in the legislature think so hard on all these issues and really, you know, they're so independent-minded, he actually got the one gay Republican in the legislature to vote against gay rights. Or just it's like this unbelievably weird thing. And, you know, it was embarrassing for them, but it was also embarrassing for our governor and presidential candidate because now he's getting asked about this. And he now has his 6th stand on gay marriage.
Good job,
Andy. What's that? Yeah. And that's exactly right. The national media is asking Scott Walker tough questions because Andy Jorgensen, the guy you send to the legislature, doesn't let people off the hook when they discriminate. And so our governor's out there running them. And the other day, he was out in New York City. Yeah, and I know a lot of people, 67% of people in the new Marquette poll say that you can't be governor and run for president at the same time. But I think Scott Walker is determined to prove it to the last third of the people, that is in fact true. And 62% of Wisconsinites say they do not want Scott Walker to run for president of the United States. And I think that they're very wise. But our president's going to go out there and show this. So he has been all over the country and all over the world. He went to England and really, I think, did us proud. Right? Because he boldly went to England and like any good Wisconsinite, and I think teachers from Janesville and Beloit will stand strong on this, he refused to take a stand on evolution. Because it's an open question. I was talking to a guy from Grant County, and I think that there's a lot of folks there who question whether evolution is coming. I can say that because my great-grandfather was the village president of Blue River in Grant County, and I'm quite sure it's an open question. But, so our governor went out there, he went over to England, and he's sitting there like in the Chatham House with all these elite people telling him he's not sure about evolution, which, I can tell you, for the Brits, proved everything they've been saying. Should never have allowed them to go independent, because they obviously can't manage on their own. And then he was over in Germany recently, and he was in Spain, and he was in France, because he's buffing his foreign policy credentials. Because he sort of embarrassed himself initially when he's out there, and he says, I am ready to take on the most dangerous terrorists in the world. I am ready to take on these beheading folks and these horrible folks who are really scary people. I've covered wars and violence in the Middle East. I've been over it. This is scary stuff. But Scott Walker is ready for it. He's prepared because he took on librarians and nurses and teachers and road crews and public employees in Wisconsin. And I just want to tell you something. You may not have won every fight, but if you scared Scott Walker that much, more power to you. So let me circle around here. We joke around a lot, and it's appropriate too. I mean, I don't think, again, you can be in a room with Andy Jorgensen and not be amused. I tease Andy. I'll tell you, I tease Andy a little bit because the fact of the matter is, along with Janice and Deb and some of your other people that you do send to our legislature, they do such incredibly courageous work, and they fight such hard fights, sometimes in really miserable situations. They are not respected. They are not. We talked about that Andy Jorgensen had to go to the mat to fight to keep DMV offices open so people could get their identification to vote in Wisconsin. So I tease a little, but I tease because it's painful sometimes. This is a state I love, and I hate that we have to send people to our legislature to literally fight for the right to vote. To literally fight for public education, to literally fight to keep the University of Wisconsin funded, to literally fight for the Wisconsin idea itself. It is painful. It is painful what these people are doing to our state. It is painful. But I'm proud that Rock County sends people up to that Capitol, and when they get up there and you throw a so-called right-to-work bill that is really a right-to-work for less bill, that Andy Jorgensen voted no, and Janice Ringham voted no, and Deb Colsey voted no, and Mark Spritzer voted no, the Rock County delegation got up there and said, no way, we're not going to attack our workers in this state. We're not going to attack unions in this state because we come from a union county. And you know what? In a couple weeks, they're going to come for prevailing wage. Steam fitters, building trades folks, they're going to come for prevailing wage. These people are actually going to try to lower wages in Wisconsin, to formally do it. I mean, they always lie about it, right? They say, oh, well, Act 10, that's not about lowering wages, just weakening unions, right? Get rid of the big union bosses. Right to work, that's not about lowering wages, it's just to make us more competitive. No, now, in a couple weeks, they're talking about literally voting to lower wages. to get rid of the prevailing wage. And I know we've taken hits. It's been rough. But I would like to think we might actually be able to win that one. And I'll tell you why. I know. And it's like, really? Yeah. I'll tell you why. Because I actually think we ought to say, bluntly, you're going to lower wages. This is it. You're formally voting against wages here. And I would like to hold every legislator who does that to account in a fundamental, very real way. Forget about everything else that has come. If they're going to vote to lower our wages, I'd like to find the Wisconsinite who thinks that's a good idea. And I would like to make this a great big issue. I'll tell you why. Because Scott Walker is running for president. And I would like people around this country to know that our governor is fighting to lower our wages. I think that's a big deal. And I wouldn't even mind it if our governor got so embarrassed about that he had to veto that out of the budget. So, Andy, that's your job. That's your job. Yeah, Mark. But I'll tell you something else. It's been a frustrating few years. It's been a hard few years. But it's been an important few years. We've come to understand how vulnerable everything that we value and everything that we've treasured and everything that a lot of us have worked all our lives for, how vulnerable it all is. That they can get power and they can take a lot away from us. They can make our lives less than they are. They can make us more insecure. And I know that it can seem overwhelming at times when the president's running around